and we'll give it a few more minutes before people start joining in. We've already got a few participants in. Let's give them another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll start the presentation, and people can keep joining when they get the time. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So we'll start our presentation, and as people keep joining in, it's already a minute past 12, so I'll start the conversation now. And my first question, and I'll put it to Rachel. Rachel, before we start, I'd like to introduce everybody. So my name is Feroz Haider. I'm the CEO of Ferrotechnics Inc. We also have a cybersecurity college. We just got the approval called uh, the Ferrotechnic Institute of Technology, and we have cybersecurity training and cybersecurity education as part of our curriculum. So I'd like to now ask Rachel, who's our panelist, to also introduce herself. Rachel, can you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, thanks, Feroz. My name is Rachel Clark. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Scotty Sense Corporation, and we do end-to-end cyber security for small and medium-sized businesses. I have been in this industry for about 35 years. I started my career in the U.S. military, where I was an electrical engineer, and I've held several C-suite roles, but most recently, I was a vice president of IT security at State Street, which is a big bank in the United States. And I was responsible for the department that wrote all the threat detection and analytics for TD Bank. So now I have my own company. Very excited about that. And thank you for inviting me here today to talk with you about cybersecurity.
Thank you very much. And I would like Anthony, another panelist, to give us his background about himself. Anthony, I know you have a lot of background. You speak a lot of places, and you're very well liked all over the world. So will really provide us with some feedback about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for us. Yeah, I wear a few different hats. So I am a practitioner. You know, my day job is a practitioner. I manage security operations and compliance at the Chartered Professional Accountants of British Columbia. I also do some teaching at the University of British Columbia, so UBC, as well as building programs in a couple other places like Vancouver Community College. I also volunteer with cybersecurity communities, so I run lots of events. So that's in a nutshell. I'm a practitioner, I'm an educator, and I like working with cool startups like Rachel's as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Rachel may have a startup, but she has a lot of experience and she has
Oh
served
yeah.
with the military. So thank you very much, Rachel, for that. And she's done a lot of very cool stuff related to cybersecurity with the U.S. military as well. So thank you very much, Rachel,
Yeah,
for that
thank
background.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So my first question to you, Rachel, is because you've got such a lot of experience in cybersecurity, what is cybersecurity?
Well, cybersecurity is a set of processes and technologies and the people who run them and that are used in order to secure computers from cyber threat. So, to me, cybersecurity isn't just a piece of technology. It's not just a process that you use. There has to be some people around it. Those things have to work in conjunction in order to make sure that we're, adequately defend ourselves from cyber threat. So, whenever I talk to businesses about cyber threat, I always want to make sure that they have those three things in place. The people that have cybersecurity expertise in order to understand what's happening, processes like tabletop exercises, policies and procedures in place so that they can adequately defend against cyber threat. And importantly, the technology portion, which may be a set of tools that are used to help augment uh, the defense against cyber threats. So a security information event management system, a security orchestration and response, things like endpoint protection, antivirus, anti-malware, those kinds of things are especially important. So when you have all three of those things together, that's cybersecurity to me.
Thank you very much. So, Anthony, the same question to you. What is cybersecurity?
Yeah, so first of all, Rachel, I completely agree with Rachel, PPT, people, process, technology. But since she's talked about that, rather than repeating it, which I completely agree with, I'm going to go in a different direction. And I look at cybersecurity from what's called the CIA. I'm going to talk about from the CIA triad, and that's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So once you know about the CIA triads, so confidentiality being the data that's there, I trust that other people aren't going to have that data. Integrity is the data that's there. I trust that it's going to remain that data. If I have $100 in my bank account and I don't spend it, I'm gonna trust that I'm gonna have $100 in my bank account when I log in again. And availability is being able to access that data. So a combination of all three is another a view of looking at cybersecurity. So the CIA. Now, one thing I'll mention about it is that every organization looks at the CIA differently. Some organizations care about availability more. Some care more about confidentiality. You obviously want to care about all of them, but you do not have unlimited budget. So you're going to have to pull some levers. And so when it comes to the CIA, you're going to have to, it's very organization dependent on how you're going to pull those levers.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And from my own perspective, because I teach cybersecurity as well, I look at cybersecurity as a connection between two or more networks. So cyber is anything, when you connect two networks together, that becomes a cyberspace. Now you need to protect the data while it's in each one of those networks. So it could be thousands of networks. You'd be connected to the internet with thousands of networks. So you have to be able to protect the data in each one of those networks while you're transferring the data, while it's in any one of those networks, so data at rest, for example, or while it's being processed at one of the desktops. So protecting data while it's at rest, protecting data while it's being processed, and protecting data while it's in transmission. For me, that is, but Rachel, you gave it to us a really good explanation. And Anthony, of course, you expanded on it really well. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so my next question is, why is cybersecurity important for organizations and individuals? Rachel, you serve so many different organizations.
Yeah. Well, we have to understand that cyber's threat is not decreasing, it's not staying the same, it's growing. Every year, the numbers seem to be astronomical in terms of how many organizations are being impacted by cyber threat. And it's not just gigantic corporations and huge municipalities that you hear about often in the news. It's also little companies, the little organizations around Canada and the United States, and frankly around the world, that are being the targets and victims of cyber threat. I read a statistic last week that 52% of cyber attacks happen to small businesses. And small businesses make up 90% of our economy. So we have to be diligent about making sure that we're protecting especially the small businesses because they are especially vulnerable to cyber threat. And just if I can pivot on that a little bit, the reasons that they're vulnerable to cyber threat is because the cybersecurity industry has a huge focus on the enterprise market, not on the small business market. So solutions are often unaffordable. That PPT, people, process, and technology that I talked about in the beginning, it's hard to just hire somebody to do cybersecurity when you're a little store or a bakery or a small factory. It's hard to justify those expenses. So really, I think that this is a much bigger and global problem that we're going to solve in the next few years because, quite frankly, we haven't been solving it.
Anthony, you would like to expand on that, please?
Yeah, so great points. To add to that, think about all the different businesses today. Almost every single business is a technology business. And if it's a technology business, that means that, they're using lots of different technology. And if it's technology, that means it can be broken into. And if it can be broken into, it means you can siphon money out of those people. So what I'm saying is essentially, cybersecurity is the easiest way to attack the most amount of people because everybody's on the internet on the consumer side. All the businesses are using technology on the business enterprise side, small businesses. And so if I wanted to, let's say, ask for $1 million from every single company, technology would be the way to do it. We've seen how CrowdStrike going down takes down half the world, right? They take down planes, right? That are, not supposed to be that technology dependent on supply chain like that, right? And this is why cybersecurity is only increasing. Like they say that cybersecurity is the third largest GDP in the world, cybersecurity attacks. And so one of the reasons why is not necessarily because everybody's so much worse at cyber every year. It's also because we do have some awesome companies that fix these problems. But the difference is that more and more companies are becoming technological companies and going more and more into technology. The more you go into technology, the larger your attack surface. The larger your attack surface, the easier it is to get hacked. So the more economy the world makes, the more technology we're using, the more cyber attack surface we're going to end up having anyway. So you need to understand that just because cyber is, the third largest, GDP, it's getting worse, like we're paying more and more every year. That doesn't mean people are getting less and less secure, right? Companies like Rachel's are coming out that are allowing enterprise level security to go to the little people, and it's allowing those little people to be more secure. But because the economy is growing, there's much more little people now that need to be secure, right? So that's why cybersecurity is important because we're all technology companies.
Yeah, and if you really think about, you take a step back and you just think about your house, right? How 10 years ago you might have had a CRT in your house or one of those big bricks that you had in there. These things were not connected to the internet, but now even in your house, everything is connected to the internet. Your refrigerator, you have all of these smart speakers around, your televisions. And what it does, to Anthony's point, is it really makes the attack surface much bigger. So if I can't get into your computer, maybe I can get into your television. Maybe I can get into the router that you're using to go on the internet. And it's surprisingly easy to do this. So if it's surprisingly easy to do it to people's homes and where they live, it's even more simple to do it to corporations who actually have money. And these threat actors who are commit these crimes, they don't arbitrarily just pick targets. I mean, some of them scan the internet and those kind of things, but they look at things like how much money has a corporation made in the last year, because they're not going to attack corporations who are cash poor. They look at things like how many employees do I have there that I could steal information from? So threat actors, have all day and all night to sit there and try to figure out what good targets are for them. And, and part of that is, do they have a good cybersecurity defense? Or can we exploit zero-day threats? So all of those things I think are important to understand when you're looking at cybersecurity.
So, yeah, as I thank you very much, Rachel and Anthony. And just a little bit to add to that, I would say that, for individuals, actually, we have an office in Florida, and I've had people who were visited by FBI and saying, "Hey, you're not the problem. Yeah, we know that it's not you, but somebody has hacked into your system, and they're using your system to hack into Department of Defense." So we need to make sure that you know how to protect yourself or how to protect your system so that the third parties cannot exploit that. We also know there was a very large organization. I don't want to name that company because they also do a lot of cybersecurity consulting. One of the office managers, she bought a fridge and put it on the network. And the hackers around the globe found out about that fridge and used that fridge to exfiltrate data, the entire data. For 10 months, they were
Wow.
exfiltrating the data without people knowing about it. We also know about a very large telco in Canada, in Ontario, actually, who provides home security through cameras, and their home security system got hacked. And the cameras, some of the users had cameras in their bedrooms, and even those, the images from those were put on the YouTube by hackers. So people have to learn that what cybersecurity is, where the threat lies, and how it can be exploited. It's not that they may be the target, but they can be used to target others as well, and it can be used to target them as well, blackmail, extort money from them, whatever. So thank you very much, Rachel and Anthony. I'm going to bring up to the next topic, which of course you've already talked about it already, but I'll ask you the question anyway. What are some of the cybersecurity threats that we see in the market these days?
Well, I mean, if I could start, uh, ransomware is a big deal. Ransomware is malware that encrypts files and extorts people for money. And it used to be just ransomware, right? So we used to say, organizations would call me and say, "Hey, Rachel, my drives are encrypted and they won't unencrypt them unless I give them money." But now there have been a lot more sophistication. So they also will say, pay me for unencrypting your files, and then also pay me so that I don't release all your files out into the wild. And three, pay me or I'm going to tell a regulator that you didn't have adequate cybersecurity. So this kind of triple extortion is happening now with ransomware threat actors. There's a couple of really big cyber threat. A lot of them operate out of Russia, where they're very unlikely to get prosecuted. Clop is a big one. Clop operates on the deep dark web. They have infiltrated several companies due to a zero-day vulnerability in a piece of software called Clio. And they have been steadily releasing 50 companies at a time information where they're trying to triple extort money from them.
Rachel,
Akira.
Rachel, can I ask you? You just used the term 0-day. Can you expand on that?
Yeah.
What is 0-day?
Yeah, zero-day threats are vulnerabilities that are found before the software manufacturer has an opportunity to patch them. So they used to be, back in the day, the Microsoft, for example, would find vulnerabilities and patch them, and there was a gap. Maybe let's say it's a day, right? So they would say, "Oh, we found this vulnerability. We're going to patch it." threat actors would scramble in order to try to get inside that day window before they patched it. Nowadays, threat actors are finding these vulnerabilities before the manufacturers are finding them. So zero day threat really represents vulnerabilities in code that are not yet patched by the software manufacturer.
Or system manufacturing like Microsoft.
Yeah, a system. Yeah, our
Linux
system. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Or hardware updates haven't been applied or software updates haven't been applied. Yeah.
Anthony, what type of threats are you seeing in the market these days?
So so one thing just to touch on Rachel's points. First, ransomware, yes, that's number one. And the reason why is because ransomware, remember we were talking about the CIA, ransomware hits all three: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Ransomware is when somebody that's not supposed to have access to your files has access to your files, then encrypts, so that's confidentiality, then encrypts them, so that's integrity, and then you can't access them. So that's availability. So that's why ransomware is the one that we see the most, because it does the most amount of damage. You kind of get to do a little bit of everything with it because you break their stuff, you steal their stuff, you stop them from doing things. And so it's the most financially, financially viable. Now, the good news is this year was the first year since 2022 where ransomware payments declined. And a big reason is because one of the bigger ransomware gangs got found by the FBI and NSA and those guys. So that's very good. That's a good news. But yeah, ransomware is big, but ransomware is an outcome, right? And how does ransomware happen? Well, 98% of attacks happen because of phishing. Somebody simply sends an email at the right time that your staff was, a little bit extra tired and didn't have their morning coffee or are rushing to pick up their kids after school and don't have and just see an email from their boss and don't notice that little external tag and then download a file, and maybe that one file gets around your antivirus or endpoint detection and it spirals into the rest of the ransomware and stuff like that. So ransomware is an outcome, but through the symptom, which is social engineering and phishing. Now, people are getting better at phishing, but phishing attacks are still getting better. Now, phishing attacks aren't the only attacks, but they're the common denominator because it's just a numbers game. Everybody's got an email. You keep sending an email, even spam phishing works. They send 10 million emails. If one person clicks, it's worth it. It's not hard for them to scan the internet and get 10 million emails.
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, there's a lot more threats going around as well. But ransomware is as at the top of it, and of course, phishing is one of the tools that people employ to get into your systems. There are also like what we call shoulder surfing, somebody looking over your desktop. There are also many different types of social engineering. People go to your Facebook. And this is one that I always tell people that, when a child is born, the family is so happy they post all the pictures and all the date and everything on the Facebook without the consent of the child. And then the child's aunt, her name and her picture is already there. The first dog, the first house, if they move from place to place, all those new places. So 18 years down the road, when that child is going to start creating their own security questions to get the credit card or the bank account. And if the question is, hey, what's your eldest uncle's name or whatever, it's all there on Facebook. And to me, that seems like a big threat that people are posting stuff left, right, and center without realizing that how it can be misused. So, without knowing, we are creating opportunities for threat agents to exploit. And, open source intelligence is all about gathering intelligence about the users and the organizations from social media. So we have to start educating people about open source and how to protect yourself by limiting the information on the social media, more or less. So those are some of the threats. And as you said, there are threat agents in Russia, the threat agents in China. Ukraine was a big place. They are looking for any place that they can, harm you. There are nation states or organizations that are run by nations to get, let's say, intellectual property from your Western countries, or so they can use they can use extortion, they can use blackmail, they can use whatever mean they can find to get to the systems of interest. So these are some of the threats that I find are very prevalent in the industry at the moment. Now, this brings me to a question for Rachel and then to Anthony. What is the reason for the global shortage of trained cybersecurity professionals? We know that there's more than 4 million open positions globally, 1.4 million of them in USA alone. Europe has more
Yeah.
than 3 million positions available for cybersecurity professionals, and they cannot find trained staff to fulfill those positions. So what do you think, Rachel?
I mean, there's some contention around this too, right? Because I think that there's some people in our industry who think that there's not a shortage because they're having difficulties finding jobs in this economy. But I also agree that, it's very hard to hire cybersecurity people just because I think that there are a lot of easy ways of entry into cybersecurity, but you really need to have a foundation in technology before you can enter the cybersecurity field. So for me, if you don't know how networks work, you don't know how computers work, you haven't spent it doing any kind of support for computing systems, it's going to be much harder for you to understand when somebody is trying to do a SQL injection, what that means, or somebody is trying to do lateral movement across the network. What does that mean? What's an IP address? Those basic fundamentals of cybersecurity have to be acquired. It is what is the overall knowledge it takes to have cybersecurity. So there was already an IT shortage of people, and then you add on another layer to that and say, well, cybersecurity as well. This is what's happening in the industry, and this honestly, through my 35-year career, there's always a shortage of technology people. There was in 1995 and 1990. This is nothing new, and I think it will continue on for as long as I live anyway. There'll always be a shortage of technology people because it's not an easy field to be in. It's just not, right?
Anthony, your expert opinion, please.
Yeah, I personally don't think there's a shortage of people. There's a shortage of senior people. And a lot of people don't even, a lot of these postings a lot of them don't even necessarily know what they're hiring for because sometimes they're the first cybersecurity person, or it's the IT person hiring a cybersecurity, like these positions we're seeing, they're mostly senior position and strategy focused positions. And that's because the industry hasn't had time to catch up to cybersecurity, right? 5 years, when I remember looking at positions 5 years ago, on LinkedIn, you were lucky to have one or two postings a month for a security position. Now, and this is in Vancouver. Now if I look up, there's probably 20, 30, 40 postings up right now. Now I think there's a lack of senior people because the industry required senior people a lot quicker than they were able to put junior people to get that experience. And that's why a lot of the senior technology and cybersecurity people are actually people coming from technology, like Rachel was saying, because in technology, cybersecurity was probably something you had to do anyway. And now all of a sudden, everyone cares enough that they're making it its own role, right? So there isn't necessarily a lack of junior people, but the problem with the junior is that there's so many juniors that think they can just get into cybersecurity with very little experience, that some people, that just do a boot camp, some people that do a certification, doesn't mean you understand the whole network. And those people, because there's so many, let's say you put up a posting for security analyst, there's going to be 200 applications. Good luck going through those 200 applications. Most of them, 195 will be the lowest effort you've seen. They might not even reply to your emails. And so, because of this amount of low quality people overwhelming the high quality people, I'm seeing a lot of people say, hey, there's no security people. But if you go and you network and you go to these networking events, you will see tons of students that are so smart that you would hire on the spot if you had an opportunity. And they're all looking for jobs. I see that all the time. The problem is it's really hard to find them unless you actually go and look for them. If you just look for a security person and you don't have any security expertise, it's going to look like you don't even know what you're looking for, and the people that are going to come, it's just going to be very difficult. You need to be an experienced security person with a network to go and find those skilled security people that actually that can take the job. It's not just, it's a skill hiring the right people and identifying the right people, not just being the right people for that job.
Thank you, Anthony. And so I'm going to put in my opinion as well over there, because I do know, because traveling through Europe and USA, I see organizations that are desperate to find trained people. There's no trained people. One of the reasons that there's a huge shortage, and there's a huge shortage for sure, because I see that in Europe, I've seen that in USA. The reason was that, after the bubble burst, the IT bubble burst in 2000, 2001, the enrollments in the universities and colleges went down to less than 18% of their levels in year 2000. And then the people who were there, they grew in their positions, they went to the senior positions, they're now retiring. And at the same time, technology has changed. Cloud computing has come in. There's a lot of security related stuff that was not there before. The Microsoft technologies have changed. The servers have changed. They're coming in with serverless technology now, and you need to secure that. There's continuous development, continuous deployment technologies that need to be that everybody need to be aware of. The world has become more global in nature because of cloud computing, and there's a huge shortage of trained staff to take care of them. Now, I also know that organizations are not hiring because if they hire the wrong person, that can be seen as negligence. So they want somebody to actually certify that the person that they are hiring is trained in the skills that they are hiring for. And you may be right that they don't know what they're hiring because they themselves do not have the knowledge about what they are hiring, what they need to protect. And this is why we need good education and good training to not only train the new people coming in, but also to train the corporate leaders into recognizing what are the skill sets needed to hire those people. So I think now I've seen in the last 1 year or 2 years, only now the enrollments are going up, but they're still less than 30% of what they were in the year 2000, for example, or 1999. And the skill set and the people who are also retiring now, they are increasing the gap in the skill set, and the new technologies that are coming up. Those, of course, there's a huge gap in the skills that are needed and the skills that can be fulfilled. So the only reason we see that people are not hiring is because they don't want to hire unskilled staff, because the laws have also changed. If you hire somebody and they can be termed as nepotism because you hired somebody who was not skilled, can be held negligence, and with insurance companies not willing to pay anything against a cyber attack if they can prove negligence. So there's a lot of things combining together. But in my opinion, because I talked to a lot of corporate leaders, I know in Europe, I've traveled around, I've met with a lot of European organizations. In fact, one of the corporate leaders for one of a very large manufacturer with more than $4 billion in annual sales, he actually burst out saying, there's no loyalty left, because the moment we hire somebody, we train them for a couple of years and then they leave and go somewhere else. Because in Europe, loyalty is considered very important for people to stay on and work with those organizations. So, Anthony, I do understand that you have a different mindset about shortage, and you think that shortage lies at a higher level? It does lie at the higher level because they don't know exactly what they're hiring for. But there's
Yeah.
also at the entry level where it's where people need to come in as SOC analyst or security analyst and start managing the firewalls or start managing the desktops. As Rachel said, you need to have that specialized training in networks and operating systems and how to support them before you can move into cybersecurity. That's
Yep.
where really the skill set, the gap lies.
100%. And actually, I agree with you. And my issue is that people are looking for these senior people instead of taking a junior and upskilling them. There's tons of great education out there for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity isn't like right now there's a lack of there's lots of education coming out, but there's a lack of, pointing people to that education. And if more managers were willing to take on a junior person and upskill them, then this gap would significantly decrease. And that's the only way it's going to decrease. But if managers are always looking for somebody, this unicorn right from the beginning, we're screwed.
That's good. Yeah. So Rachel, sorry, you were going to say something, Rachel, because I was going to come to you for the next question.
No, come to me for the next question. I was just agreeing with you all. Yeah.
Thank you. And Rachel has created an AI model for SOCs, like security operation centers. Rachel has, with her superb background in electronic engineering and data analysis, she was able to bring up something with including artificial intelligence for SOC operations, considering there's such a lack of trained staff. So Rachel, can you let us know how do you see AI changing the technological landscape in cybersecurity?
Well, I think there's two different lenses to look at it, right? Lens number one is how's it going to benefit cybersecurity and cybersecurity practitioners? And really, for me, a lot of the work of cybersecurity, well, let me just back up a little bit. I think cybersecurity is sexy, and it is very attractive to people who are not in the cybersecurity space. And it is, and I agree with that, but also there's a lot of mundane work that has to happen when you're doing the work of cybersecurity. So there's alerts and false positives, and you have to do investigation and understand, where things are coming from. I think that AI is going to be really substantial in terms of how it's offloading some of the more mundane tasks from cybersecurity people so that they can do actual investigation and actual defense. So in that milieu, I think it's a positive thing. What we've developed here at Scotty removes some of the mundane tasks of doing cybersecurity. It removes a great deal of them, actually, so that we can really concentrate on the more important low-level things that we need to do to defend our clients from cyber threat. On the other side of the coin, threat actors have the same access to the technology that we have. So what I've seen is a market shift in how phishing is one really excellent example, how phishing is changing the cybersecurity landscape, because 2 years ago, detecting a phishing email was pretty easy because it would be formatted poorly, the spelling would be wrong. Threat actors who weren't from the West would use some interesting words and very effusive language and how to communicate. And so we don't communicate like that even in our business and even in our business dealings, right? We don't say, my dearest and greatest friend ever, please look at this. There's just not how. So those things were easy to catch. Now with LLM and generative AI, those barriers go away. Those barriers to language go away. So now phishing emails look legitimate and real, and they're much more difficult to spot by human beings. So we have to build technology to help us to do that. And so people are getting scammed on a greater basis by phishing mails because, quite frankly, they look legitimate. I saw one from UPS the other day that if you had given it to me 2 years ago, I would have clicked the link because it was that good. It was just really, really good. By the way, I don't click labor for anything for anybody, but but you know, in this case, when you're looking at it from the standpoint of a person, an employee or a business, you know, it's difficult to do. The other thing is generative AI has the ability to mimic people in a way that it's undetectable. So somebody could take this video. Anthony actually showed me a really good example of that last year when we were in Europe, right? He did a whole thing on him. I'll let him tell you about it, but you know, people can use your face and your voice and recreate you in a way that could make you say horrible things or pretend, you know, they could exploit you for, you know, things like sextortion has happened. So we also have to develop new ways of, you know, staying one step of threat actors, and that's very difficult when they have the same access to the same technology.
So Anthony, yeah, Rachel brought us to talked about you showing her that something. I'd like to ask you, I've heard so much about mimicking voice and video about, what's your feedback on that? How do you see that as a threat in the coming days? Or it's already existing?
Yeah, it's already existing. I mean, it's really easy to do. I mean, if you use your own likeness, it's even easier because, I used a tool called HeyGen, and actually since then, Rachel, it's gotten significantly better. And I actually got on a call with their CEO and talked to him about it and stuff. And they're using it for marketing, so you can create like AI influencer videos, right? But if you can create AI influencer videos, you can also create deepfakes. Right now, their only real security gateway is the security thing is, hey, check mark and a face verification that's actually you uploading videos of yourself. However, as open source models get better and better, that means that it's just a matter of time until anybody has access to non-gated versions of it. So how we're going to be, how are we going to verify identities in the future? There's a lot of debates. There's a lot of different conversations happening around that. I'll let the identity verification experts deal with that. But it is going to be a problem, and it is going to be something that, anytime you will get a phone call or a video, you're going to need to be aware, right? You might come up with secret phrases, right? If you speak different languages, you can speak in those different languages with those people, right? There's been many cases already of somebody calling elderly people and pretending to be their children or grandchildren in jail or something like that. All you need is a couple minutes of audio, and that's all it takes to clone. So it is a huge problem, and it's only going to get worse. And I have a feeling that it's going to go in the direction of spam. So don't quote me on this, but what happened with spam was basically one year we had, 5 spam emails, like just in general. The next year it was 100. Then it went to like 5 million. Then it went to half the internet. So it was a very exponential growth of spam and phishing started. When people realized that this works, it just grew like crazy. And I'm worried that this is going to happen with deep fakes. And there will be technology that catches it, but not everybody will have access to that technology. And the people that won't are going to be at a much lower, won't lower hand, I guess, if that works.
Yeah, so I think this is very important. I've had actually a couple of incidences where office managers got a call from the CEO asking them to transfer $10,000 immediately because they needed it. And the voice was the CEO's. The number that appeared on the link was the CEO's. So the office manager got in a panic mode and they sent out the money, only to find out, getting a call back says, hey, I was looking at this bank account and there's $10,000 less. Where did that go? And she say, hey, you asked me to transfer it to this account. We just transferred it. So, and this is actually happening right now. So this is just the beginning, as you said, Anthony. It's going to grow and grow. So we need to come up with some technology to start, creating awareness about, not only awareness about it, but how to counter it. We need to counter this now. So as you said, one thing would be that, hey, you may have some check phrases with your family members, with your business associates, with your office team. But yeah, you need to verify that it's them, you know, before you take the call or you act on that call. Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. That was really revealing. And thank you,
And
Rachel, for your feedback. It brings me to my next question. It's what are some of the education, training, and certifications available to professionals or entry levels people to get into cybersecurity if they want to adopt this as an industry or a career?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, if you haven't had exposure to cybersecurity or you haven't done it before, I always tell people that they should avoid taking the CISSP exam because it's really meant from a CEO's view, not necessarily a practitioner's view. Uh, there is a whole plethora of different kinds of training out there. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but there is, you know, I think A plus training and other kinds of training. Anthony, I don't know if you
yep,
know
I've got the
in
list.
detail
Don't
what some of
worry.
those are.
Yep, I'll
Okay, good, because I
go
don't
over them
remember
in
the
detail.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I just, like if you're starting out in cybersecurity and you're going to take the CISSP exam and pass the CISSP exam because you're a really good test taker and studier, I don't think that's going to get you ahead. But if you can get some practical experience, you know, doing some of the things that Anthony is going to tell you about, going to school with arrows, so you can get some practical experience around that is key. Plug for you, my friend, to do that
Yeah.
would be important. But certifications, I mean, unless they have a practical application, I would skip them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always maintained that education starts in the college and universities, and then especially hands-on experience. So labs, they should be doing labs, labs, real world networks. So I think Anthony has a list of all those courses. I'll let Anthony know, or Anthony talk from here, take over. Thank you,
Sure.
Anthony.
Yeah, so I usually say there's three ways you can get into cybersecurity. One is post-secondary kind of formal education, two is certifications, and three is networking. Now, the more you do, the higher chance you get the job, right? So, for example, post-secondary education, that can be something like Ferrotechnics, right? Or an institute that gives you that diploma certification, certificate, whatever. Certification, that's the industry standard certifications like Rachel was talking about, and I'll go over in just a minute. And networking is going to all the different events that you see. If you do all three, right? So if you do the Ferrotechnics while at the same time doing your own certifications while going to local events, that's going to put you in a position where you're most likely to get a job. Because think of everybody else, if they're not doing it, you're ahead of them. Now, when it comes to certifications, when it comes to cybersecurity, there's three different paths I usually say. There's the blue team, which is defensive, and that's where most of the jobs are. There's the red team, which is attacking. And then there's the business side, which is GRC and compliance, which is actually growing very, very quickly because it's now security is starting to become a business problem. So that GRC is basically what is the kind of gap what translates between the business and IT. So if you want to get into the blue team, A plus is more for hardware and understanding the
Systems.
technology,
Yeah.
so it's a really good base level. Then you would go into something like a network plus to understand how networks work. So A plus, you need to understand how the hardware talks. Network plus, you go into how the network works. And then security plus is where you now is what they're looking for when a entry level certification. If you're doing something like a school, there's a good chance you'll learn the A plus and the network plus in your schooling. So you can skip that, but Security Plus is something that you would want on your resume if you're looking for security jobs, especially on the blue team. There's also one called CIS Plus, something like that, and that's specifically for SOC analysts. So if you want to be a SOC analyst, so analyze incidents, you can get that one. If you want to go into the red team, now you have to go and get what's called the CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. So this is what you're going to see on most job descriptions when it comes to red team, the CEH. And yeah, in the business side, really it's a little bit interesting because from the business side, nobody gets into cybersecurity compliance. What usually happens is you're either a engineer, technologist, and compliance gets put onto your plate. And hey, we have to comply with that standard. Oh, Anthony actually knows what they're doing. Okay, Anthony, you're the compliance guy now. And they either get into compliance like that, or from the business side where you're doing compliances for other things, and it's like, oh, security compliance might as well be on your plate. So for compliance, there is not really many entry-level certifications, but you can do compliance in any organization. And once you have about 3 to 5 years of experience, you can go get something like a CISA, which is the gold standard for compliance, which is Certified Information Security Auditor. Once you have that, you can basically go get whatever other certification you want. You can get your PCI, DSS, QSA, you can get your ISO lead auditor, all that fun stuff. So basically, to summarize, network, certifications, post-secondary education. When it comes to certifications, there's red team, blue team, and compliance. Red team, you want to go CEH. Blue team, you want to go Security Plus. Compliance, you want to get to CISA as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I agree with you, Anthony, completely. But I think everything starts with basic education.
Yeah.
And that basic education for cybersecurity must include hands-on training. And as Rachel said, and also Anthony said, that they should learn how to manage the systems, how to set up a system. What is the computer itself? What is the operating system? How does it interact with other systems? And from there, we get into networks. What are networks based on? Because cybersecurity is all about transferring data from one network to the other network, or one system to the other system. The moment you connect two systems together, that becomes a cyberspace. So we need networking experience. We need operating systems and systems experience. So A plus, to start with A plus. So we go with the cybersecurity education, even the diploma, and a good diploma that you will see in the industry these days. They will start with telling you about operating systems, about systems, move you into networking, and then to security plus sort of stuff. So how to secure your networks, how to secure your other systems, and then go into blue team area and red team area. So they show you how to defend your own systems, and then how to attack, what's pen testing, for example, so that you would know how the hacker is going to come to you onto your system. So at Fair Techniques, we've designed a diploma exactly with those things in mind. We start with teaching how the networks, how the systems work, how the operating systems work, and then take them to networking, and then take them into security level, take them into blue team stuff. We take them into red team stuff. And then, as Anthony was saying, that once you're into that and you've got 2 or 3 years of experience, that's when you start getting into higher stuff like CISA, Certified Information Security Auditor, because you want to audit to see whether or not all of your systems are working okay. And also CISM is a good certification from ISACA. And Anthony, you're very deeply involved with ISACA. So CISM, Certified Information Security Manager, that's also a very good certification to have.
Yes.
Yes. EC Council has CISO, Certified Chief Information Security Officer. That tells you a lot about how to manage organizations. And as Rachel said, CISSP is it's the gold standard. So you need to understand everything. You need to understand networks. You need to understand how softwares are developed. You need to understand these compliance stuff. And then you get to CISSP, because that becomes your gold standard. If you have a CISSP, you become really somebody that people can trust, that have knowledge about all the systems. It's not very easy to pass, as Rachel may think that, you can, if a good person has good knowledge, or they're good at passing exams. But trust me, CISSP exams are not very easy. And I know that because we do teach CISSP as well. And I think most people do not comprehend because they do not have hands-on experience. You need a lot of hands-on experience for those sort of things. So in my opinion, I'll agree with Rachel. I agree with Anthony. You don't go for CSP right from the get-go. Get your base education, base level, then move up. And then, as you move up, you gain more experience of the in the SOC, for example. Rachel is a really good place to start, really. She operates a SOC. She uses artificial intelligence really well in the SOC. And then we move from there, as Anthony said, get into to compliance space, and then learn how to hire new people as well and transfer that knowledge. I would say, transfer of knowledge is also something we should teach senior people on how to transfer their knowledge to their team members.
That's one of the most difficult skills to do is properly transfer knowledge.
Yeah.
As soon as you can do that, you can create as many teams as you want.
Yeah, thank you. We only have a few more minutes left, and I have a few more questions, but I think we'll skip the questions, Anthony and Rachel, if it's okay. We'll open the forum to people, see if they have any questions. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask Anthony or Rachel? Please unmute yourself and ask the question if you have any questions. Darshan, Kara, Shreb, Dev, Sakina. I know, Sakina, you've been very enthusiastic about cybersecurity, and I think you also work with the Justice Department, so maybe how the Justice Department can use cybersecurity. Well, I think people are very satisfied. No questions.
Well, ask us more questions than the time we have left.
We have got 4 minutes left, actually.
Oh, okay.
So Parita or Tro or Eugene, I know Eugene is a very senior person. Darshan, do you have any questions? No. So if there are no more questions, before we log off, I have a question for Rachel. Rachel, what is the role of Security Operations Center? You're such a good person with Security Operations Center and artificial intelligence. What is the role of Security Operations Center in cybersecurity? And then we'll ask Anthony as well the same thing.
Okay, so we actually run a security operation center for clients. It's a way for logging information to get put into security information and event management system. So you can run threat detection analytics against it and determine threat that's not normally available or normally apparent to people. So to give you an example, if you install an antivirus product on your computer, it does a very react that only addresses known threats. When you have a security operations center, you have a team of people and a lot of process and technology that is looking for a threat that's not readily apparent. And mostly SOCs are used by enterprise organizations because it costs $1 million or more a year to run a SOC. I have just been able to build technology that containerizes that to small businesses and makes that available. So when we say enterprise level security, we're talking about Security Operations Center, which include SIEM and SOAR, also includes vulnerability scanning and remediation, which is really important, and penetration testing, and some dark web scanning and threat intelligence is so important in the SOC business. So if you think about any major bank in Canada, they all run Security Operations Center. Any major organization or corporations, all of them have SOCs.
So Anthony,
I don't know if Anthony, you want to add to that?
Honestly, like I don't know what to add. That was quite comprehensive. I guess the only thing I can add is what makes, in my opinion, the SIEM different than other tools is that your security engineer can maintain all your other tools. Your SIEM will need a full team in itself, especially in a larger company, because you're getting data you're creating alerts, and then you have to have someone managing the alerts. So once you have the SIEM up and running, only half the battle is done. Now you have to maintain it, manage it, have a 24/7 team, and that's why most small businesses and medium businesses will actually outsource the 24/7 part of their SIEM to a third party so that they don't need to hire 3 or 4 full-time people to be working 24/7. So yeah, so a SIEM is one of the more bigger upbringings when it comes to cybersecurity. But I have nothing else. You've defined it extremely well. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
like the first-
or you could just build an AI security analyst, right?
There you go. It's
It's
coming.
the first line of defense, huh? So that's where
Yeah.
you build up all your alerts about any person trying to infiltrate. If there's any data
Yeah.
exfiltration, that's where you will find out about all of the security events. Okay, so
Yeah.
this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you very much, Rachel, for your
You're
feedback.
welcome.
Much obliged for
Thank
all.
you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
We'll
Thanks.
post this online as well. So this presentation will be available online for everybody.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right. Bye.